So Marina, tell us about the shift that you see with sponsorship and programming. What is changing?
First of all, the main important thing is the integration. So sponsorship in programming already did not perceive by the staff locally in the community that sponsorship is something that should be done separately. Sponsorship with sponsorship in programming, and we were lucky to try this process, we found out that lots of processes that already happening in the community and which is in the log frame could be really support all sponsorship activities that are required to be implemented. Another thing, that it is very much community-led process, rather than it's a requirement that this is World Vision thing to do in the community, but through this process you really empower the community, and community understand lots of processes, the importance of processes such as doing monitoring, APR, and whenever a community is starting to understand the importance of it, they started to own the process. And the main important thing, that the ownership of the community increased with this process.
And how are you seeing that ownership in some of the programs in Armenia? Do you have some examples of what that ownership looks like?
Of course, for example, with monitoring. If previously monitoring was something that only World Vision was interested to do and only the information was only for the sponsors, now this information is very important for the community. And whenever, for example, in Yerevan ADP, we were working with different stakeholders, partners in the community, such as schools, kindergartens, child protection units, polyclinic, so people who are really who are standing very close to the families of children, especially the most vulnerable children. And whenever there is a group of people who are thinking about and concerned about the most vulnerable children in the community, for example, and when you are putting the monitoring data on the table, they started to use, each of them starting to use their resources to support this family. On the other hand, monitoring became the process of building the capacity of the others. Because, for example, the schools, though they are standing very close to the families, but they don't know how to identify the problems in a family, how to support these families. They thought that they were alone. But with this process, during several years, they started to understand how to identify that monitoring is a good way of identifying families at risk. And then, while building their capacity on letter writing, showing that they are not alone in the community, that there are other resources such as polyclinic, child protection unit, who really can be support to this family as well. They really became empowered, schools and kindergartens, that they are not alone in identifying children, the most vulnerable children and families at risk, and also working with them to take them out from these difficult situations. So monitoring, I'm not saying that it is fully already involved, fully taken by community, but at least there is a big network where people are gathering together, people who are really thinking of the most vulnerable families in the community. So they are gathering together, analyzing, monitoring data, and starting to put their resources in supporting those families.
And how are you enabling staff to make a transition from this old sponsorship to the new sponsorship? How has that integration and that shift, how have you enabled that to happen?
You know, I always say that Yerevan ADP is lucky to pilot development program approach, which was IPM, integrated program approach, because the whole path really gives you opportunity to start to think of each of the process differently, not from the perspectives, I am World Vision, I'm very strong and powerful and I can do everything. But from the process, I'm World Vision and I'm here to build the capacity of others, so in 10 years they would not need anything about World Vision. So they will be so empowered and the ownership would be there, and they would understand all the mechanisms within the community, so they would not address World Vision for supporting them in a process. So it was from the very beginning, it was good shift within all staff mentality and myself that World Vision here has only facilitation role in equipping, empowering community, mobilizing them, increasing their ownership towards the processes within their community. Because World Vision, after 10, 15 years, will leave the community, but schools, kindergartens, municipality, polyclinic, child protection unit, they exist. And the most important role of World Vision, which we see, is a facilitation, bringing them together, showing them importance of working with families at risk. So the DPA process really helped. All these steps are very well thought, how to start working with the community from the very beginning, from the very first step when you're entering the community and saying, look, I'm here and I don't know anything about this community, and you are people who knows both the problems, concerns, but also you have lots of resources. And every person in the community, it's a huge resource, it's a huge asset in their community, and they just need to understand this, that every person matters in the community. And every child's life is matter for every person in the community.
What are some of the challenges you face in your ADP and in your national office to move kind of further up the continuums towards this vision?
It is very difficult when you are doing the process which the same area development programs are not doing. You are always, there is a comparison, and sometimes there is a staff concern saying, why we, for example, why we are doing monitoring? Because in World Vision, in Yerevan ADP does not have paid mobilizers, community monitors. All the processes of sponsorship are done by the DF's development facilitator workers and by local partners. So, and sometimes when you are there listening the experience of others that DF's never involved in any APR development, monitoring, and this is it's a quite, it's not a difficult one, but it takes lots of time, efforts to take and have a quality information, both in APR and quality monitoring information, taking out from teachers, etc., and parents. So sometimes they have some kind of concerns why. But when you really show them the importance role, and I'm saying, what is the difference between empowering student council, for example, and doing APR process? What is the difference in the activities? This is our log frame, and all the parts of it are integrated, and you are the one big team, and we all of us are doing the same thing. We are all trying to contribute to child well-being. And for example, for our staff, annual progress report of a child is not just a process where the child is described its participation. But for example, for each of development facilitator who is working for particular schools where there are RC and non-RC children, annual progress report is a great evaluation tool how the activities that have been implemented during the whole year in a school impacted and influencing on every individual child. And then we sit together, we use most significant change tool, taking the powerful stories of change. And the work is difficult, but it has so much inspiration in it. Whenever you give something, but you are taking so much back from the whole process. When you see that kids are developing their assets, they're starting to think differently, they're starting to lead some processes, involved in different processes within the area development programming, this is so rich, this is so inspiring, then you really want to do more and more because you really see the change. Though the ADP is quite young, this is the first cycle, but we see the change. Especially we see the change with kids and youth and overall with different stakeholders that are working. I'm not saying that we're just very good. There are lots of challenges. Still, child protection system is not so much developed in the country. Still, civil society is low. But there are lots of good already, not only seeds, but also already some fruits that really worth to proceed and go more.
Anything you'd want to say in concluding? A parting shot or a parting thought?
You know, to change something is difficult. I understand that. The change process is difficult. It really depends on a person. If the person is open for innovation, creativity, if the person really wants to make the process more interesting, even some playful, creative, then we need to go for this change. Because, you know, for me, all our programming is about sponsorship. And our message was sponsorship is community development. We never separate sponsorship from the whole programming because there are lots of elements in health, protection, education, and the main aspect which I really truly love and believe this brings lots of care to the community, increasing lots of assets in child life. Children become more flexible, more empowered, and the community itself. So yes, change is difficult, but it's worth to try because the first several times it would be difficult because it maybe requires more time of the staff, but later the process itself is so fruitful. So then everyone would later inspire to take the fruits and see the results in the community. So go for that, go for changing the program and starting to see the sponsorship, lots of activities in requirement as community empowerment process which really empowers community and is led by community, because World Vision is not forever in the community, and World Vision is in the community for empowering them and building their capacity, understanding that each child's life is matter. Thank you.
Thank you.